All right, boys and girls, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about suspension. And now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what the fuck, John? What suspension? Hey, get off my case, all right? So this is our blank canvas, as it were. And you could do a lot worse, I'd say. You could do a lot worse. It's pretty clean in here. So we finished sort of cleaning up the engine bay as best or as reasonably as I could. We're not going to be painting this. We're just going to clean it up and basically keep it as it is. There's some areas that I was kind of annoyed. They just don't clean around the brake booster and around the firewall. You know, I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and I used that sort of spray-on turtle wax on everything, and it just doesn't get clean. It gets cloudy like that. So that's kind of a bummer, but I mean, the upside is it's, generally speaking, it's pretty clean and tidy under here. You'll notice I have a freshly painted subframe, so that is an EG/DC2 subframe. I got one out of the junkyard, and it was I don't know. I mean, it was rusty. It was all surface rust, but I decided that I was going to buy a cleaner one on eBay for too much money. And then once I got it, I decided, well, I was going to paint it anyway. Anyway, so I use POR 15. At the moment, it looks good. I know some people that have used it on like chassis, like a truck chassis. So is that going to be appropriate for this? I don't really know. I don't know. Put down in the comments, boys and girls, if you have any experience with it. It does get every fucking wear, and it doesn't. Man, that stuff does not come off. So maybe that's a sign. Anyway, so we're going to be doing suspension. So what kind of suspension are we talking about? Let's take a look. Okay, so at the center of the stage, you guessed it. You know Jamar, no expense spent. So we got the Max Peating rods coilovers. These are their sort of popular plus trim level, as it were. So not the cheapest, but the sort of upper mid tier. What's the actual difference? I'm not really sure. Are they any good? I don't know, but probably not. At least in comparison with the Gucci uber expensive stuff like the KW or the anyway. So these were like 300 and something bucks on Amazon or on eBay or whatever. They have adjustable dampening, or at least so they say. So I mean, I just can't justify spending a whole bunch of money, even albeit on better, higher quality suspension on, you know, a car that's going to be so tightly wound. And I just don't know that I don't know that extra finesse is going to give you all that much in terms of handling performance. I do expect that the damper or the dampener. I do expect that would wear faster, but I mean, you know, how much faster and more? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not spending fucking $3,000 on some springs for a fucking go-kart. I'm just not doing it. So even if they aren't any good, am I enough of a connoisseur to know the difference? Absolutely not. So we got those. These are the fronts. The rears are already on the car. I do have to get it and do a bit of a dive on the rear suspension and brakes setup. I'll do that in a future video. As you can see, I wasn't lying. The POR 15 gets fucking everywhere and all over my hands. It's been like a week and it's still on there. Moving on to other stuff. These are just bushings for the sway bar. We do have a sway bar from an OEM sway bar from a DC2 that we're going to be using. These are some end links for said sway bar, and these are from Moog. So I mean, I'm not a total cheap ass. I will buy Moog when it's appropriate. Are these always coming out of high quality factories? You know, I don't know, but generally Moog is a better way to go. We got fresh brand new tie rod ends. both sides. We got some, these are just factory clamps that I gotta scrape that off and redo it. Painted with the POR 15. Again, let me know what you guys, if you have any experience with that stuff, because it's, I don't know, it seems like it's good, but I'm gonna have to scrape all this shit off of there. And then upper control arms. So we went with the again, sort of mid upper tier eBay, Amazon kind of thing, the True Heart. Are they any good? Probably not. I don't know why they would be any good. I mean, the biggest thing that I would worry about really is the ball joint, and it doesn't seem to be like it's one of those replaceable units. And I mean, in my experience with anything that's got a joint like that, whether it's a excuse me, whether it's a tie rod end or a control arm or a pitman arm, idler arm, pitman arm. Anyway, the only issues I've had when I buy some off-brand is, you know, the joint in there, those surfaces are not hardened and they'll just wear out overnight. I had a pickup truck that I replaced the idler arm on the steering, because it's not a rack, it's a steering box with linkage, and I replaced that arm which has a ball joint in it like once, and then within 2,000 miles it was sloppy as fuck again and worn out, and so I ended up replacing it like twice before I got wise and put a Moog in there, and then the Moog lasted until I ended up scrapping the car. So I'm not really concerned about anything other than the ball joint for this guy. And I guess we're just hoping that they put a decent ball joint in there, which is not likely. Anyway, lower control arms. We've got, these are Delphi. They were on clearance. I was looking at just redoing, because I was going to press in new bushings anyways, and I was just looking to, the only reason I'm really replacing these, because I think I could use, get this thing out of here. I think I could use I could use my factory control arm, but this part I would need because of the Civic DX does not have this feature to tie in your sway bar. So I could have bought it used or at a junkyard or whatever, but these were like, they were like $60 a piece. So I was like, fuck it, let's just have brand new ones. And I knew I was going to replace the bushings anyways, but at least we got a fresh bushing there. I did replace the, I did replace this bushing. I'm not sure which, basically the inboard bushing. I did replace this with the Energy polyurethane, but I did not I don't know if they have it available for this, but I'm not very concerned about this one, because this is where your forks mount anyways. So my biggest concern in wanting to use, or I should say, my biggest concern about the polyurethane, my biggest concern about the front suspension in general is using rubber bushings is going to allow more give than these polyurethane ones. And with big grippy tires and as much power as I want to put through the front wheels, I don't want these things wiggling around at all. I really want to lock them down as best as I reasonably can. And if you've ever seen like even moderate horsepower cars sitting on the dyno or anything like that, and watch that front wheel shake back and forth, that's because these bushings aren't constraining the travel of that wheel very well, which is bad, boys and girls. Everything else, I mean, not a whole lot more to talk about. These are my stock forks that I just kind of cleaned up, and they cleaned up really nice. I mean, you can hardly believe it's almost a 30-year-old car, and this is the factory hardware. It's been riding underneath a 30-year-old car, but again, it's been doing it in Tucson, so it just looks fucking brand new. It's great. So I'm going to slap this stuff together, and we'll see how this goes, and we'll touch base in a few minutes. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to fit our lower control arms. So I already have our bracket with the polyurethane bushing sort of loosely mounted underneath the subframe where it's going to live. And then we're going to take these, put the big one on the front, slip that guy in there, and then smaller one goes on the back, not on there so I can leave it. Let it hang. Yeah, for this kind of thing, when it comes to getting threads started, I like to do it by hand in case it's getting bungled up. That way, it only gets fucked up to a moderate degree instead of a severe one. So I'm just sort of snugging things up, but we're not torquing everything down yet. The entire subframe, in fact, is all still just lightly tightened. So what I'm gonna do here is slip this guy in there. Now I always leave these loose, and you want to leave them loose until the car's sitting on its own weight, so you don't trash those bushings. That's a fucking bear. Oh. I just want to explain myself a little bit more on why I didn't tighten these guys up here. So that in each side of there is a bushing similar to this one, right? And the core of that bushing is fixed to the rubber, and the shell of the bushing is also fixed to the rubber. So basically, if you rotate these independently, you'll shear and tear the rubber. So if you were to tighten these now, then when you set the car on its wheels, it's gonna rotate the shell and the core in opposite directions. And although that movement or that motion is going to occur under normal use, it won't do it if you wait till the car is on its wheels and sitting where it wants to sit. It won't shift to such a great degree. Whereas if I tighten it now, this thing is going to swing all the way up and just likely damage or just shear all that rubber. Okay, well, we're getting ready to assemble this coilover assembly. One thing you might have noticed is where we connect or are clamped by the forks. Now, this divot is here to basically lock in or ensure, if we see that pinch bolt, that ensures that even if the bolt loosens, the fork won't become disconnected from the bottom of the coilover assembly. So it requires that the bolt become, basically the bolt is fully removed in order for this to separate. Now, so that provision has been designed into this rod, however, into this coilover. However, these are like universal multi-purpose. I don't know if the EG or EF or others are a different design fork, but as you can see, that doesn't fit. So they thought, oh great, well we'll just give them a spacer so that you have this spacer, this sort of shim looking thing that fits on there. Great, but the problem is now your bolt doesn't work. And so you can see if I unscrew this. Anyway, yeah, you can't put the bolt through. So that was the other way around. So the bolt just smacks into that piece of steel. So not unlike lots of these other eBay components, is they leave a little bit. They always leave a little bit of the design and manufacturing work. Fuck. What the fuck off of there. Jesus Christ. They always leave a little bit of the design and manufacturing work to the customer. Isn't that nice? So just take your angle grinder and grind a divot in there. I already tried. I've seen online some guys, they just run the fucking screw in there, and that just, I mean, it's I guess you consider it a self-clearancing screw. And they just run the screw in there and fuck it. But I started to do that. I did that smartly with a different bolt instead of the one, because I figured something fucked up might happen. Did that with a different bolt, and it just fucks up the threads in the bolt, and in turn it's going to fuck up the threads in the fork. So don't do that. Just grind a thing in there, grind a divot in there so that it works. So we slide that on, slide our fork on. I'm trying to do this with one hand. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to jack up this assembly with a floor jack just to get it in a position that's now notice I'm not doing anything with the ride height or the preload settings or any of that. I don't know where to put it yet until we're on our wheels. Then I can set ride height and stiffness. In truth, you really need to drive it around to know what stiffness you want, and then once you have your stiffness setting sort of set, then you can just adjust your ride height accordingly. So basically you're adjusting your spring preload with these two lock nuts, and then this portion is threaded onto the main body. Well, we don't know where to put it yet until we're on the ground. So basically this is likely all going to have to come apart again. Okay, boys and girls, so we got this suspension assembly all together. I did go ahead and install the sway bar while you weren't looking. Put some light on that. And that was more of a bitch than I remember. It's definitely easier taking them off than putting them on. But in any case, the sway bar's all together. Now, next thing I'm going to tackle is this guy. So this is just the brake hose from the Civic, the 08 SI that these calipers came off of. I was going to replace these calipers, but I mean they looked to be in pretty good shape, fairly new anyway. Sort of the same story with the rotor, but maybe I'll just replace the rotor. We'll see how they drive. Anyway, so we're going to replace these hoses. So I got DC2 Integra hoses to fill their place. Okay, correction, forget what I said about the brake line. I bought a set of DC2 brake lines, and well, basically they don't fit. So I had to look at the old EK. I guess I just ordered them without thinking. I took a look at the EK Civic ones, and they make more sense. So we'll postpone the brake lines for, I don't know, a week until I get new ones. And we'll shift over to the steering. So what we have is a manual rack from an EG. So, and these are, you can still get these new manufacturer, and it's less than $200. So we're gonna fit that up in here. Then I know that there's an issue that we'll need to resolve with this area, and you'll see that in a moment. This gap you can see here, right? This gap usually, well, doesn't exist on an EG, but you can buy, it's a little banged up, you can buy a spacer that covers the sort of housing and just fills in this gap. You can buy for it's like $250 fucking dollars. It's ridiculous. So we're not going to be doing that. Cheap ass Jmar, you ought to know as much. But then I saw a 3D printed one, and it was like $180. Like, you're out of your fucking mind. There's no way. So I'm just going to take a measurement and then print one myself. On this side, so this is a power steering subframe, and we need a special bracket for that. So basically you can buy these things. These are on, you can get these on eBay for like 12 bucks. It's basically an adapter so that it's a bracket that fits the power steering subframe, which is the most common, and fits a manual steering rack, kind of like that. So I think that's good for now. I'm just going to end the video here. So basically I'm going to take some measurements and I'll come up with some kind of design and 3D print a spacer here just to basically seal this area. And then I'll be able to put on the tie rod ends and all that jazz. So we got to take some measurements, mock that up, and then take it apart, put it together again, and then take it apart and put it together again. Then I'll probably take it apart and put it together again. Then after that, I'm going to take it apart and put it together again. Then I'll probably take it apart, put it together again. And then I'll probably have to just regroup all together and figure out something else. Anyway, thanks for watching.